Hello millionaires, so in this week's video, we got to talk about cash stuffing 2025. Does it still work? Because if you don't know what cash stuffing is, it's when you take money and then you physically stuff it into an envelope, or a folder, or some type of container, and then you seal it away until you have enough money saved up for whatever your goal is. For example, if you wanted to buy a new Tesla Model S, which come on, who doesn't want one of those? You would take all of the cash that you earn, and instead of spending it, you put it aside into an envelope where you label the amount you need to reach your goal. And then once you get there, boom, you buy the car and you have all of the satisfaction of knowing that you saved up enough money to buy something without going into debt. Now, although this concept was invented hundreds of years ago, it made its way onto YouTube back in 2017 by the brother known as Graham Stephan. And since then, it's been picking up quite a bit of traction. In fact, just last week, I posted a story on Instagram asking whether people still use cash stuffing in 2023, and over 80% of the votes were yes. So given the overwhelming support, I thought it would be a good idea to go over the basics, why it works, why people love it, and finally, how you could implement this into your own life regardless of how much money you make. Although keep in mind, there are a few downsides that we will address later in the video, because not everything is sunshine and rainbows. So first, let's start with exactly what cash stuffing is. The whole premise is simple. Instead of spending your money, you keep it. Now it sounds easy. But that's also the same thing that every other financial guru has said throughout the entire history of finance. And yet most people still struggle to save. But cash stuffing seems to be different because it actually addresses the root cause of why people save money, and that would be spending. That's why if you ask anyone who has ever tried cash stuffing, they'll tell you that the biggest benefit is the psychological barrier of not being able to spend the money until you've reached your savings goal. Second, you have complete control over your cash. Even though a lot of us grew up in a world where everything is done online, there's still a sense of accomplishment and gratitude when you physically hold something because it reminds you of all the effort that you had to put in to receive it. It's kind of like the difference between receiving a gift card and receiving something tangible. With a gift card, you're left wondering where the value is coming from, whereas with something tangible, you know exactly what it took to get there. And third, by putting your money into a cash envelope, it becomes less likely for you to waste it. In fact, I remember reading a story about a woman who hid her money around the house because she couldn't stop spending it. And even though it wasn't the best idea because she lost a significant portion of it, at least it kept her from blowing it all at once. Not to mention, in a world where so many of us are living paycheck to paycheck, having access to extra cash in an emergency can provide a great peace of mind knowing that you have a safety buffer between you and ruin. But now let's talk about the downsides, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. First, it's not very practical. If you're like me and you live in a major city, chances are you spend under $100 a month in cash. Everything is Venmo, Zelle, or a credit card. So having $5,000 worth of cash stuffed in your car could very well be the equivalent of carrying around a backpack full of pennies. Plus, if you're unlucky enough to get robbed, you lose all of your money. And no, your insurance probably won't cover it. Or second, it's highly inefficient. Let's face it, banks pay almost nothing in interest right now. But if you leave your money in a savings account, at least you get 0.5% interest paid out every year. With cash stuffing, you earn zero interest, which means that you're leaving money on the table, which is really the worst thing that you could possibly do financially speaking. However, despite these downsides, cash stuffing does have its benefits, especially if you're someone who needs that extra motivation to save. But to me, there is a better alternative, and that would be a hybrid approach where you get the benefits of both worlds. For example, as part of my personal finance system, I automatically transfer 15% of my income into a retirement account, 5% into a taxable brokerage account, and another 5% into a savings account. And then the rest is what I get to spend. With this strategy, I'm able to save without having to think about it. And by breaking up my savings across multiple accounts, I get the psychological comfort of knowing that I have money set aside for various emergencies, while also getting the maximum amount of return. And now, with that out of the way, let's talk about how to actually start cash stuffing and why it could work for you. Alright, so overall, the process of cash stuffing is pretty straightforward. You just need three things: an envelope, a pen, and of course cash. Okay, and technically you also need something to write on, but I'm sure you have that laying around. Anyway, the first step is to determine your goal and how much you need to save. This is important because every envelope should have a purpose and a deadline, and ideally, it should also be something that is time sensitive. For example, let's say you wanted to buy a vacation or a dream trip to Hawaii. You decide that you need $4,000 and that you have 8 months to save. From there, you divide the total cost of your vacation by the number of months you have to save, and you figure out that you need to set aside $500 per month. Next, you grab your envelope. You write down $500 as well as your deadline. And every time you get paid, you stick the envelope away with the intention that you will not open it until you reach your goal. If you want, you could also use a cash stuffing tracker where you keep all of your envelopes in one spot, and you visually check off each month as you fill up the corresponding envelope. In terms of the cash itself, you could either use brand new bills or you could use older bills. Personally, I would go with brand new bills because it's more satisfying, and it helps you visualize the progress that you're remaking. However, if you're planning to hide the cash somewhere, then it might make sense to use older bills, because you do want anyone to find it and think that you're trying to bribe them. But besides that, there's no right or wrong way to go about this. Just do whatever makes the most sense for you. In terms of where to hide the cash, anything that's secure is fair game. Some people like to use fireproof safes where others prefer to use kitchen boxes or pantry boxes. The real key is to make sure that you don't forget where you put the money. But if you need some added peace of mind, you could always take pictures of where you're re-hiding the cash and then save them in your photos under a secret album. Then finally, in terms of when to start cash stuffing, the answer is whenever you feel motivated. For some people, that could be right before payday. For others, it could be when they receive their bonus or tax return. And for others, it could be during the holiday season when they receive extra gifts. There's no right or wrong way to do this, so long as you have a plan and you follow through with it. However, something else that you have to consider is whether cash stuffing is actually worth your time. After all, you have to dedicate a portion of your day to stuff the cash, hide the cash, organize the cash, track the cash, and depending on how many envelopes you have, that could take a significant portion of your time. And if you're already tight on time, it might be worth considering whether the extra hassle is really worth the marginal benefit. That's why I think the best approach is to only cash stuff money that you do really need on a regular basis. So first, figure out your expenses. Then save up enough money to cover those expenses plus a little bit extra. And then the rest you could allocate towards cash stuffing. That way you're not wasting time on things that you need, but you're also not forgetting about the things that you want. Anyway, I hope that clears up any questions you have about cash stuffing. And with that said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to destroy the like button and subscribe button. Also, feel free to add me on social media, but only if you want to. And with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video.